Like any good parent, giving that honest advice to your kids is a very smart thing to do. Well, I had to do that here on the show today. I've got a guy that worked for the BBC for 20 years and has just started his own podcast agency. But I don't think he's cut out for entrepreneurship. I think he's talented, but not talented in the place that's going to bring cash flow into the business. This honest conversation's about to happen. Hello campers, welcome back to Business Broadcast, where we'll be speaking about Ginger Wizard Productions, which is the company that we're discussing today. They've got a podcast production business. JB, do you know anyone that does that?
Yeah, I've got a problem with this one. Got a problem with Nick. If he didn't sound like such a lovely man, we would not be doing this conversation.
Yeah. Do you think he's got ginger hair?
I hope so.
Yeah.
If not, I feel like
we actually didn't see him, did we, in the pre-chat chat? But he's got a business. He's only doing about £1,000 a month at the moment, but it's just kicked off.
4 months ago.
4 months ago.
4 months.
He got made redundant from the Beeb
Took redundancy.
Took redundancy.
He got the gift of redundancy.
Got the gift of redundancy, and then took a leisurely stroll around for a while, and has now started his business.
I think there's going to be a lot of radio people who are going to be coming into this market. Actually, think about it. I think there's lots of. I've just taken on a new member of my team, and he's at Global Radio. He still works there at the weekends.
And who are Global Radio, just for listeners that are uninitiated?
Global Radio own Heart, Capital, LBC, Classic. So any of the big stations on your dial.
There's only really two, isn't there? There's the people that own KISS is the other mob, isn't it?
Bauer. Yeah, so you've got Bauer.
They own Classic FM, don't they?
Yeah, no. So Bauer, Classic FM's owned by Global.
Right, sorry.
Bauer own KISS, Magic. And they used to own Absolute, but now you've got Times Radio which is now News UK, which owns Virgin Radio, Times Radio, Talk
So
Sports.
three in the country.
Three big ones. There used to be probably 7 or 8 big ones. You had like Galaxy, and you had the network up in Yorkshire. But yeah, there's the big 3 now, and then the BBC. So you've got 3 big commercials in the BBC, of which Nick used to work for. He used to work for the local BBC.
Can an independent radio station make money, do you think?
No. I don't think they can.
No.
There
are still some independents though, aren't there?
Some, yeah, but they are probably, the majority of them will break even, or they probably just turn enough to keep the light switched on for the time being, frankly. Or there might be, you get a lot of like community radio stations now.
I'd like to own a radio station. If there was one in Essex, I'd own it. I'd just if I could get enough listeners, you could use it to...
But you do advertise on Essex Radio, didn't you?
Yeah, we did used to advertise. I suppose we would, but you just can't get the return. I know it works if you do enough of it.
Yeah. I used to like Time 107.2 in Romford. Covering Romford, Time 107.2. No, but I used to be able to pick up the signal from it, and I loved local radio, so I'd listen to it.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Buckinghamshire. I'm actually quite posh, I just cover it well. So I grew up in Buckinghamshire.
What, and you picked up a Romford radio station?
No, this was when I was a bit older. This is when I wanted to be on radio from like 19 onwards. I fell in love with radio, and then I moved over to...
So you grew up in Buckinghamshire?
Grew up in Buckinghamshire. Then I went to work as a holiday rep for 3 or 4 years. Then I fell in love with my then girlfriend, now wife, who's still the best person I know, by the way, just in case she don't listen. It's fine. And then when we came back from being holiday reps, where I lived, Buckinghamshire was like horrendously expensive, and she lived in South London, so it was like, well, let's just go and move back down your neck of the woods. So I did.
So, and you live in Bromley now?
Bromley, Chislehurst. I'm quite posh. Still quite posh.
Fine. I understand.
But you could pick up, so in Bromley, you could pick up Time 107.2.
Fine, okay, got it.
It's actually 107.6. I want to be correct about that.
Fine,
I forgot the dial.
So he's doing £1,000 a month. He said he picked up one big client straight away.
Nice.
What's his challenge? No team members. What's the challenge?
No team members. Challenge number 1: finding leads. It's hard to connect with the kind of people that could need my help. Challenge number 2: I'm up against the big boys. There's some huge agencies out there doing what I'm doing, and I'm just me. Challenge number 3. And
that's not an excuse.
But I can see why he thinks that based on what a lot of them do from the BBC. Fine. Which maybe we'll touch on in a minute. Challenge number 3, I just don't know where to market myself for the best. LinkedIn is generating a bit. Where does he want to be in 1 year? He's been going since November last year. He'd like to be turning over at least 50 grand a year by this November. What does the business look like when it's finished? It looks like a mobile recording unit and possibly a studio set up in the city centre. Do you make the profit that you want to make? I think we know the answer to that. He says, no, not yet. I've only been going 5 months. Day to day, what do you do with your time in the business? He chases leads, keeps on top of LinkedIn. He goes to meetings, and he's also producing his how-to podcast, which I don't think is a bad idea, by the way.
Hey gang, we're going back to the pod in just a moment, but I wanted to tell you about Entrepreneurs University. This is a platform that I've created for entrepreneurs and business owners that are serious about growth. There's 100 video lessons from me on everything in business, raising finance, buying companies, property investment, and everything in between. Attached to each video is a downloadable PDF that goes into more detail about what we've learned in the video. It goes one step further than that because I've also put stuff that you won't get anywhere else onto Entrepreneurs University. The lessons go into way more detail, but not just that. You're going to get my business plans, my spreadsheets, and all the files that I use to drive the KPIs in my business. Just think about how powerful that could be for your business. And here's the good news. You can try Entrepreneurs University for free. 14-day free trial. After that, it will cost you just $49.99 a month. That's less than a pair of Nikes to grow the profitability in your business. There's a link in the video description, and I cannot wait to see you in Entrepreneurs University.
Live all the way from somewhere else, it's Nick. Well,
yeah, where are you from, Nick?
I'm doing my best radio voice now. Come on, Nick. How are you?
Long time listener, first time caller. I guess that's what you call me. Well, I'm in Leeds. Literally, the sun has just come out. It's been raining cats and dogs all day, and the sun has just come out. Welcome to beautiful.
You can take the local
sunny
radio out of the boy, but you can't take the boy out of the local radio, can you?
It's ingrained. It is ingrained. But listen, lads, thank you so much for getting me on, because this is a real pleasure to join you on this, and obviously weird for me because I'm not usually the one doing the chatting. Yeah. So thank you.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question straight away, Nick. Do you know what you actually want?
Do I know what I actually want? Yeah, I want this. I want the business to support my family first and foremost. I mean, my wife's, full-time employed, and is very good at a job, and that's all great. But, I want her to be able to relax a little bit, maybe not work as hard, and me take up the reins a little bit with this business. And I want it to be.
Can I ask?
I want it to be. I want it to be. And I'm sorry about this, JB. I knew this would happen fairly early on, but I want it to be the kind of go-to name in podcast production. I want it to be the thing that, when somebody says, I really want to start doing a podcast, but I haven't got the first idea what to do, I want them to think Ginger Wizard Productions.
That's fighting talk around here, Nick. That is fighting talk around here, Nick.
I knew that wouldn't go down well.
Before we get to that, though, I'm trying to go, I'm the prequel to that question. I want to know, what does...
I hadn't hit the record button, so that's ironic for this. Don't worry, it's recording on Riverside, so that's absolutely fine.
Are you sure?
I'm absolutely sure. I can't, because he's so... What wants to do? Don't you laugh at me, Nick, because I know you wanted this to happen. You willed this into existence, you ginger wizard.
Hey, I tell you what, I'm very cheap, James, if you're looking for a...
Do you know what? We might be having a conversation off air, to be fair.
Yeah, good. Right, but the prequel to that, I just want to. Do you know? Like, do you want to, JB? You've got employees. Mm-hmm. You've got it's growing your agency, isn't it? He's got an office here. Do you want all of that, or do you just want a nice lifestyle business that pays you up to £100,000 a year?
Yeah, do you know what? I do want that. I mean, I've thought about it quite a lot, and I was thinking, how do I grow this? How do I bring people along with me to make this big, to make it huge, to make it that name that people instantly think of?
So you do want to grow something, and you do want employees, and you do want to build something big.
Yeah, my big question with that is, though, and I've thought about this quite. I'm probably a bit of an overthinker, but I wouldn't want to just bring anyone in to do job X. I'm very much, they've got to be like me when it comes to audio and thinking about the story, thinking about the quality thing, and I wouldn't just want somebody, I hate to say this, but somebody that's just walked out of university. So my problem is that I want to be employing experienced people who quite rightly are more expensive. So there's another problem. Like, how do you get to that point where
but you're not talking like an entrepreneur there. You're talking like a manager of audio that's going to do a great job. Yeah, there's two parts to this, isn't there? You know, if you're producing a film, you've got a producer, a director, an actor, an editor, you know, and I think you're not thinking about the producer part, which is if you work for the BBC, you know, those are the people that are in charge, aren't they? The people that are signing the checks.
Yeah.
This is also
that is my.
This is the mindset, Nick, as well, of people who come out of the BBC, because people become, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way at all, because God knows I tried to get into the BBC and I was not good enough. So you have already surpassed my skill set there. But a lot of people have been,
remember to press record.
Fine. I mean, minor detail, whatever. Let's go over it. But I think people become indoctrinated into how the BBC run, and there's a commercial element to running a business which you just probably haven't experienced because you've been in employed roles. And the point that I mentioned earlier, where I was saying about, you know, you're up against the big boys and there's some huge agencies, and Jim was like, I don't think that's really a thing. I know why it's a mindset for people who have come out of the BBC though, because they go on to, you know, like Crowd Network. You probably know these guys. Crowd Network came out of the Beeb. I've gone on to go and tender for some of those shows. We've got some of the big shows. Then they go and get some Spotify contracts, etc., etc. Goalhanger, exactly the same thing. You know, Goalhanger, which is owned by Gary Lineker, he was already doing documentaries on sport, and then he's moved into the audio space. And okay, they've now created a commercial entity that doesn't require the BBC. Same with Peter Crouch, for example, the Crouch podcast, which was funded by BBC Studios, gave an absolute smash hit. And I did a blog about this 2 years ago. I was like, Peter Crouch would make more money if he took that off the BBC, which is exactly what he's gone on to do now. And now he's actually, you know, got this second podcast with his wife doing the therapy Crouch and all that kind of stuff. But I think walking out of the BBC, because people are indoctrinated into that world, you think that the way to run an agency outside of it is to go and tender for the work to get those big productions for them. There's a whole different marketplace that those BBC agencies or ex-BBC agencies don't even know exists. There is enough money for you out there that you don't need to go and tender for that kind of work. But equally, you've got to start thinking like a business owner, not an exec producer / head of production.
And that is why what you just said there, JB, is exactly why I asked him, what do you actually want to build? Because if audio production is your passion project, then that is going to be a very different to the passion project you'll need to turn it into a profitable commercial enterprise. They are two very different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know, you've hit the nail on the head there, because even before I left, I was, you know, I've always daydreamed about owning my own business and working for myself. And I've always been very, very wary that my entire career has been all about the product. Do you know what I mean? It's always been about what comes out of those speakers and nothing else. You know, even really the listening figures, the radar figures, if they were bad, they were bad, and if you were unlucky, they'd move you to a different show. Never happened to me, can I just add? But I've always been very, very aware that if I'm honest, I don't really have a business head, and I find that probably the most frustrating thing. But
it's
I
not
really
frustrating,
want it to be.
No. So it's not frustrating. It's just a reality. Like you've got to be chasing the pound, chasing the customers, generating a profit. And if all those things don't naturally sit well with you, then maybe you need to partner up with someone that is a seriously commercial person that's going to grow the business.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
I've just launched a northern division of my agency. I don't know if anyone knows that. And Nick's my first employee, live on the podcast.
No, but I do think that, you know, you need to know who you are. And that's fine, isn't it? There's an analogy I want to give you. There's lots of teachers that become head teachers. And they hate becoming head teachers because they say, I'm not teaching anymore. I'm running a business here.
Yeah.
And I'm running a school budget that's millions. You know, so you can have a secondary school budget of 15, 20 million quid, one of these big schools. that ain't a teacher. And then they've been trained as a teacher. They've gone to university and learned all the teaching things. Hang on a sec, I'm looking after a £20 million budget here, 1,500 kids, 600 staff.
I'm a CEO, I'm a head of HR.
Exactly.
What's happened here?
And then they have to retrain these teachers to do exactly what JB said, become a CEO. And look, I'm just being honest here on this conversation. You're talking very passionately about creative, which I like creative stuff, by the way. I don't know if you've checked me out. I've done a YouTube channel. I've wrote some books. I've been on the stage in my previous career, and I love doing stuff like that. But, commercial awareness, you're just not going to crack it in business. You'll just always have a profitable job. And what I try and tell people that are in your shoes, that is okay. And you can build a profitable job and love your life, because it's not for everyone to walk in my shoes or your shoes, JB. And it's not for everyone to walk in your shoes, Mr. Ginger Wizard Productions.
So are you saying then that I should stick in my lane?
I'm just saying you need to work out what you actually want, because you said you wanted to have a big business, blah, 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 blah. And then you sort of, within a few sentences, started retracting from that statement very quickly, saying, I haven't got a big business head. I'm frustrated. Not everyone, business isn't for everyone. It takes a lot of things to make the world go round. Not everyone can be a doctor. Not everyone can be a barrister, a lawyer, a vet nurse, a head teacher, a teacher. We're all different. And very few people have the gun-ho, the staying power for successful entrepreneurship.
And a lot of people don't want that.
Yes.
As well.
That's
the other thing, because it could actually be like, oh, well, I've got the staying power. I really want it and I'm really committed. But it might just be the thing that, like last year, I'll be honest, last year was commercially, it was the hardest year of my life. There was so many times where if I'd have had a plan B, I probably would have pulled the escape cord. I had sleepless nights. I had tears. I had frustrations. I had just bringing in enough money and bringing in, and this is so far in your past, you probably can't even see it in the rearview mirror. But I had.
Let me tell you now, I have those thoughts and feelings on a bigger scale even now.
Yeah, okay, so it's all relative to. But I had 4 or 5 people, 10 grand a month cash flow. There was 3 times last year. Sam and the team in the office are going to love editing this. There was 3 times last year that on the last day of the month, I had to sell to pay the bills.
Yeah,
I couldn't make payroll if I hadn't have done that deal. I would have money land into Stripe, and I'm like, right, how much of it can I draw down straight away because of your Stripe facility and all that sort of stuff? I chucked out an invoice a day early and did whatever you had to do. It was horrible, to the point where I said to my wife at one point, I don't want to do this anymore. And she went, what? And I went, any of it. I was like, I actually don't want to be here anymore. Like, I don't know what that actually meant in my mind, but I was so clouded in my judgment. I was so stressed out. I was working so many hours, but was just treading water in ever sort of decreasing circles. If you don't really, really want it, you will not make it through those times.
Yeah, and if you just had a podcast agent, one-man band,
which I had.
Yeah, you would make the same money.
Yeah.
If you want to go to the next step, where there is bigger money at the next step, but that next step is 10 years.
Yeah.
It takes 10 years. I don't care. Put me in front of anyone that it takes 10 years to build
100%
a proper sustainable business.
Month 1 of my podcast agency in COVID, when I had left working with you, because I had literally had too many bills to pay because I'd had a lavish lifestyle that I couldn't afford, champagne lifestyle, lemonade wages from the company that I had before. I made £7,350 in month 1.
Yeah. Things starting to look good.
Things started to look good. Got some more teammates on board. I have not paid myself £7,350 in the last 2 years. I've paid everybody who works for me more money than I've paid myself.
Yeah. Happens all the time.
But I know for 3 or 4 years.
Entrepreneurship, gang.
But that's just the reality of it, and not to sort of scare you or to talk you down from it, Nick, because if you're really committed to it, then that's great. But what I see a lot of especially a lot of ex-radio people, and you're pretty pals with them on LinkedIn, the same people that I am, all they ever talk about is the quality of the product, the quality of the audio, the quality of the microphone, the quality of the soundproofing. That is 1% of what makes a successful podcast production company. Because people don't care about that much stuff as much as you think they do.
The problem as well you have with a podcast production company, because you're doing it for people that are not pros, that are not people that have been on camera. If they don't start, I've made 10 episodes, why am I not getting a floodload of work? Well, you got to make 150 episodes. And will they continue doing it? Will they continue having the staying power to keep making the content before they do get this? And you will get amazing return on investment if you keep at it. So then you got to make sure your clients are keeping at it and going, well, you know, you don't learn to drive a car after 10 lessons, do you? You know that it takes a few more. Come on, gang, you know, it's 10,000 hours of practice to get really good at something. And
this is not to talk you off the ledge of entrepreneurship, Nick, by the way, and this is not to be sort of...
Do you know, I'm starting to have massive second thoughts now. I might go and see if Aldi have got anything going.
And if you have that thought at the beginning part of the journey, don't go down the route.
No, but what I am saying though is you could build a profitable job.
100%. You can have a really nice lifestyle.
You know, you could build that £5,000 a month coming in, editing podcasts, looking after clients, having just 10 clients that you really look after, and maybe you build it up to 100 grand a year. It's a second, but if you start employing people, you'll have 100 grand a year coming in. Right, hang a sec. Now I'm earning 30 grand a year less because I had no cost to sell and I was keeping that 100 grand. But we're going to go into this. But then you go and get more clients, and so then you end up earning 40 grand a year, bringing in 140. So you're bringing in a bit more cash, but all that other 100 is going on all the costs of running the business.
Exactly what I did last year.
Yeah, you now need a place for people to work. And actually, until you start getting to 1.5 million turnover, then you can start paying yourself 300 grand a year at that point. But that journey from 100 grand to 1.5, getting over the million, 1.5 is where I think the next stage is now because of inflation and all that palaver. Not a lot of people do it.
I think as a solo editor, realistically, if you're doing sort of like some trainings and stuff like that, you could easily do 10K a month by yourself quite easily. Yeah. You know, charge 1,500, 2,000 quid a month production, do the video, do the audio, do the management. You could have work on one client podcast per day, do the full edit, do the clips, do the assets, do the thumbnails, do the show notes, all that stuff, and have a really good business.
Have a profitable job, not a business.
Profitable job.
Yeah.
To get that same money out of the company, like I say, you've got to be doing probably 1.2, 1.3 million quid to have the same amount in your pocket.
And look at the pros and cons here. The pros are you don't answer to anyone.
Yep.
You are your own boss, which actually takes, if you're sick, you still have to deliver because otherwise your customers won't pay you. You got to take some money, which you don't have to worry about if you work for someone. You will lose some clients, so you have to go. You
find more,
fill them up. But it won't be as stressful. But and people find it sometimes lonely working on their own. That's the other problem with that scenario, isn't it, JB? There is no community around you which you get to work.
Yes,
that's the big problem I have with people working from home. I think eventually we will all in 5 years time go, I haven't got a community around me.
Yeah, I think at the very least for you, Nick, you need to be going and like working in like a WeWork, or so. Even if you do decide like I'm going to do it as a sole trader kind of vibe, go to a WeWork. Do you know what? There's probably in central Leeds there will be a WeWork, there'll be a Spaces, there'll be
there's tons.
There'll be loads of them, and they will have studios in them. So you could actually, probably find clients that use those studios.
Yeah, but I mean that's a great idea actually. I mean, I've got to say though, I've spent 20 years working in like really busy, noisy, vibrant newsrooms. I'm actually, and maybe this will wear off after a time, but I'm actually really enjoying working on my own. There's nobody kind of walking in and distracting me. It would always be a way. You'd be sitting there trying to get something done and done quickly because, quick turnaround and all that. And someone will want to start a conversation with you and you're like, I've not got time for this. But you can't say that to them because that's, obviously a bit rude, isn't it?
Yeah. And I get that point, but
I'm quite enjoying being on my own, but...
Will it last though? That's the thing.
Probably not.
All you're going to see is your wife and your children, and as much as we all love them, it's nice to have friends. And the older you get, sometimes,
absolutely.
It is. I think human beings are community people at the end of the day, and it is frustrating when people come talk to you. But just get a studio, and when you're in there, they can't disturb you. You put the red, I'm on air. But look, I
the
don't
other
want you
thing
to... sorry, you go first.
No, I was going to say really, and JB, you'll probably have a bit of input on this. Is what happens with podcasting and AI? Because there's plenty of stuff out there already. For example, there is that online thing you can use where basically it uploads the audio, turns it into basically a Word document, which you can then edit. It edits the sound at the same time you're doing it.
Descript.
And I'm already thinking... Descript, that's it. Sorry, I couldn't remember it. And Adobe have brought out something very, very similar very recently in beta. And I'm already thinking that part of the business isn't going to be around forever. So what I need to do is focus on editorial and, make the editing side of things, because it's not very good at the minute, Descript. But it will get good. And I'm already thinking I need to think about how I position myself in a world where AI is doing that for people and they don't need someone like me. They can do it all from the desktop. Is that something you're thinking about?
Yeah, but there's also like a skill set that AI can't help with, like the coaching and mental. What AI can't replace is your 20 years of experience. You know how to tell a story. You know how to tell a narrative. You know how to frame a conversation. You know how to make let's say you go to... you get yourself a studio facility and your clients come in, the first time they do a recording, you'll know this from launching a podcast, they'll be absolutely bricking themselves. So that giving them that confidence and that capacity and helping them with the interview technique and all that stuff, you can't take that away from AI. There will always be a place. AI is not going to take your job, but what AI, I think as agency owners, I think it's exciting because you don't need a copywriter now, because ChatGPT, I hate, sorry to all the SEO people, I had one of them work for me recently. Oh, it's just not as good as human people. Sorry, but it kind of is. Like ChatGPT will do a lot of the heavy lifting. You could get it to come up with the first 10 episodes. You could get it to do the show notes. You could use, Descript, Otter, Autopod, or Phonic, all of these different tools that you can use and utilize to speed up the process. But for me, that just makes you it gives you more tools that you can increase your profitability, because they are staff members you don't need fundamentally. I just think you've got to, it goes back to Jim's first question. Do you really want it? And if you do, and this is not for us to dissuade you, our job is not to dissuade you in any way, shape or form. But
no, you're opening my eyes, and that's what I need. It's very rare you get this kind of insight, because you stand at a network and speaking to someone that's been on their own for 20 years. They don't give you this kind of insight. So don't worry about that.
But I also do think with the skill set that you've got, for example, like what Crowd Network have done, and I'm sure you might even know those guys personally, they are absolutely smashed it. But again, they've gone out and won a couple of big contracts. They've got a team of 15, 20 people. They've done they've got business development, they've got social media, they've got marketing, they've got, quite a chunky team now. They've based themselves at Salford, next door to the BBC. So they're still integral. They're out of the BBC, but they're still in it. They're probably still going for lunch with their former colleagues. I think you could probably, with your skill set, go and land. I can see you've got a big college locally to you. I think that there's loads of big companies up in Leeds and that neck of the woods, and your expertise. I don't think you need loads of clients and loads of teams to have a really nice life, and I think that's probably the business that you really want to create for yourself.
Yeah. And do you know what? Anyone that's listening to your little bit there about technology stealing the business or stealing the workforce, or tractors didn't get rid of farms, or farmers. There's still lots of farmers. They use tractors. Computers didn't get rid of the way of life. They just assist and help, don't they? And I think that's what AI is going to do. It will assist in, and we use AI to assist us on come up with copy ideas for our videos and questions and repurposing an email, but we're still writing the basis of it. And I just don't see that changing. The fax machine, it just helped people get instant messages across, but they were still writing the stuff. And, there'll be something else in the future, won't they? That, all the time, there's always something, cryptocurrency is going to get rid of money. And, there's always something.
Yeah. Should we go to your questions as well, Nick? Because again, there's a viewpoint that we've sort of pushed on you slightly on this podcast. I want to make sure that you get the opportunity to ask your questions. So you asked, submitted 5 questions. Let's go through them now quickly. I think I need to be approaching more CEOs. How do I get to them?
Well, if you really did want to grow the monster, it would be wise to have a successful podcast of your own that you can lean into.
Yeah.
So people contact me all the time from my content. I mean, I just can't cope with all the inbound good stuff that comes my way. And so if you really want authority, you should have your own stuff. I mean, JB, you're getting authority from being on this podcast, aren't you? And
it's the gift that keeps on giving.
I don't mean that like from a jokey point of view.
No, but we've
there's 100,000 people each month that are business owners listening to this. And myself and JB, you know, you build community, but there's nothing better than a human being saying, "Oh, he's done it over there, then it must be good." And most people, you know, you can't hang your hat on the 20 years of the BBC. That will help absolutely because people know what the BBC is. But if you had a top 5 podcast in a category, I think that would make me want to give you some monies.
Well, there is the podcast masterclass from Ginger Wizard Productions that you can check out if you want to.
Yeah, but what is it about?
Well, this in itself, it's a podcast about podcasting. So it's series 1, which is only 5 episodes long because I think I got from A to B all right in those episodes. So that sits out there for me as a basic marketing tool, which I can keep chucking out there every now and again.
Yeah, but just say,
like you would a blog post.
Maybe if there's let's just do it. Say it was like the guys that JB spoke about on Gary, whatever his name, Gary Lineker's thing. We spoke
Go
about,
Hanger, yeah.
They do The Rest is Politics. There's The Rest is Entertainment. Have you seen any of those podcasts?
Yeah, aware of them.
Yeah, I mean, The Rest is Entertainment is such a good podcast. Those guys doing Q&A around a niche industry for people that work in that space.
Yeah.
But if you could be, wherever that goes, what sector would that be in the podcast charts, do you think? Culture?
Yeah, something along those lines, yeah.
So it goes into culture.
I did it as a how-to thing. So I'm not. I think.
Yeah, but that's great. So you've done that, and that's good for marketing. Yeah. But say you did create a brilliant podcast around a sector, whether it's a cooking podcast, a gardening podcast, and you got a load of people listening to it. When you go and say to people, "Look, this is my gardening podcast. This is how I got it to number 1 in the charts in the gardening sector," and I'd done it 28 days straight, so I've got regular listeners, and then people can say, "All right, I understand it." Does that make sense? Because they want to see that you're successful. They want to see results before they give you money.
Yeah. Well, you asked a question right at the start of the show, and you said, I hope he is Ginger. I can reveal I am Ginger, and I can exclusively reveal right here that quite soon I'm starting a ginger-based podcast. It's all about gingers across the world.
So that I like.
Yeah.
It's just about we're going to have a feature called Random Redhead, where we just speak to ginger people in the street. It's going to be great, and also with each guest we get on, I feel like I'm selling this. I'm not.
That's the best name for a feature I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. We're going to have Sun Cream Corner, because I guarantee you, every ginger has a go-to sun cream.
Yeah,
and they will not deviate. Once they know it works, you're sticking with that sun cream.
So if you could then say to them, look, if you choose a niche and this is the journey and this is how I produce it and this is how we keep people listening, these are the watch times, 100,000 people listen each month, this is how we got it to the top of the charts because we chose a niche first of all, and then the niche broadened out, all of those things that you will learn, because they don't care about the production. They really don't care about the production. They care about what money is this going to bring in for me as a CEO into my business.
Yeah.
If you're getting a business to part with money, they're straight away on return on investment. Now, if they get a return on investment and they're happy with the return on investment, then very quickly they care about how good it is.
Yeah.
Now, there's loads of great, there was loads of great shows on TV and stuff like that. If you don't make money, it don't stay on, does it?
No, exactly.
It doesn't get the view. It's all about return on investment. Unfortunately, that is what it's about. But you've got a great personality, and you could. I mean, to be fair, if I had your personality and your know-how, I would sack off building a podcast production company. I would just come up with my own podcast, get a load of people watching it, and then get sponsorships and build my own brand. I mean, it's like a no-brainer for you to do.
Yeah, but I mean, it's really dangerous with a mortgage, though, isn't it? I mean, like, you know, a podcast production company.
Maybe do the podcast production to give you some guaranteed income, but over a period of time, you build up. I mean, Nick, you have a personality. You know how to do it. If you did a podcast every day for a year, and it was, you know, it's just a 30-minute jokes and the ginger podcast for ginger people, whatever you said you was going to do, and you did that consistently and put a 20-minute show out, a 30-minute show out every day for a year, that will build. And you put it on YouTube as well, so you record it. You can have a personal brand after a year. And then the rest of the day you do your production stuff, and then you just build your personal brand thereafter. And I reckon you could have $100,000 a year coming in on sponsorships and ads. And
Sean Keaveney's just done this. I listened to this the other day. It's called The Daily Grind, and it's basically him and a former. Yeah, it's a good show, isn't it? But that's
it's really good.
For me, that is the perfect hybrid between podcast and radio, and it's done so well that it feels like I would still tune into that. Like I would have tuned into Sean on Six Music Breakfast Show. I would tune into that at 4:00 on Global Player because it's that well executed. I think what you need to do is
forget YouTube.
Yeah, and that's the other danger. So the other thing I see with lots of radio people is they completely disregard. There's lots of people on LinkedIn who are former radio people and they're audio snobs a little bit, which is fine. But podcasting is now not a piece of audio. It is a piece of content. It's a show. It is the potential for your blog. It is the video. It is the short form clips. But again, a lot of radio people are like, I've got to use a cardioid microphone.
Their nose up on GB News that are established broadcasters, and you're like, don't tell you what GB News has achieved in short order on YouTube is outstanding. Isn't it?
It's got the small, like GB News, prime example, GB News has got the lowest reach of any news channel in the UK in terms of sort of standard watch time, but they've got one of the biggest reaches of their social content. So that's the other bit. And maybe you've, as Jim said, you have one show that's your Ginger Wizard Productions owned IP that you do, and then the other shows that you do for clients is the thing that fund your time effectively. So if you can get, say, 4 clients per week, it means that 1 day per week you can just work on your own stuff. That's what I'd be doing. I've as an agency, we've launched 177 podcasts for clients now, so it makes it easier for us to go and get more clients. But to start with, as Jim mentioned, it was just doing my own podcast, which started to get traction, which then enabled me to take on other people and other clients.
But now, thinking about JB, when you trundle in to a room and say, I can do your podcast, not only if you're the one with your wife, but this one as well. Yeah. People can wander onto YouTube, see the comments, see the views.
Yeah.
Like, that is instant testimonial. In marketing, we call this risk reversal. Like, all the risks are being reversed. Well, he's doing it. He's doing it twice a week himself. He must believe it works if he's prepared to put that time into doing it. And if I want to get someone that's going to help me run a podcast, I really want to give my money to someone
who's doing a podcast.
If I want someone to teach me to cook, I want Gordon Ramsay, Jamie Oliver.
Google Ads agencies haven't got enough clients. How have you not got enough clients if you're good at Google Ads? Like, it makes no logical sense.
Yeah, it really. And even if they don't know that they need that, their back of mind is telling them that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's a total subconscious thing. Yeah, I know it totally does. And I guess this is my worry at the very start of it all. It becomes a bit chicken and egg, doesn't it? But you're right, that's the route out of it.
But you can
now you say it, it's obvious, but you're right. You're absolutely right.
I mean, you could have, with your personality, with your skill set, you could have a daily podcast that after a year, I promise you, if you've done 365 episodes, and they're only 20 minutes a day, and they have good fun, and they've got a regular, like us, we do a rating at the end. We've got the 3 challenges. There's a bit, although it seems like we just dick about here, but there is a basic script and
structure
to what we're doing. You come up with that. That means that you don't just waffle on for 20 minutes. That there is a script and structure, and people like the beginning, middle, and end, don't they? And I think. I wouldn't recommend it to many people, but you are someone that knows how to do it.
Yeah. And then what you could do as well, you can make the content which you're going to find an organic audience, which is going to grow your personal brand. And then you can take the learnings and lessons as you grow that thing. And then that becomes the basis of your content that you create for LinkedIn, for example. Why I've tested now doing 2 shows per week, and here's the results I've got. I've tested going daily. Here's the results I've got. I've tested dropping down listen time to 15 minutes per day. I've assessed the top 10 business podcasts, and here's the commonalities of it. You could share all that stuff on whatever the podcast becomes about, but those learnings and lessons becomes your content for LinkedIn, which then seeds your expertise. One of your questions was, I've got 20 years experience at the BBC. Do I tell people that? Should I go into detail? 100%. Because that's your point of difference. In terms of, there's lots of people out there who are doing, starting agencies, because as Jim would say, there's no moat around the castle. It's very low barrier to entry. You buy a URL and you've got a thing.
If you've produced 365 of your own podcast, that's a moat.
What a moat. Yeah.
Because people they're just like, it's like if, God rest his soul, Steve Wright said, I'm going to teach people how to do radio.
Oh.
Like people would sign up.
Oh.
Yeah.
I would. If he says it to me now, I'm still signing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great thought. I'm just going to do that. I can do that easy. That's something I can do like tomorrow, isn't it?
Stephen Bartlett
that's
is
ideal.
about to launch a podcast network. He's got about 50 job adverts out at the moment that I saw yesterday. Oh my good God. So, but why is he doing that 3 years later? Because he's got the biggest show in Europe. That's why. So now he's got all of the credibility. That's what landed him Dragon's Den.
He's trying to do you, is he?
Yeah. Me and him are going to end up in like a YouTuber fist fight, I reckon.
Wow. So is that what he's building? A podcast agency?
Podcast network, yeah. He's not building an agency, he's building a network. So
what does that mean?
So he's going to basically own the intellectual property of the shows. So he will do the production in-house, but he will sell sponsorship and advertise. He'll basically go to all of the big influencers.
He's like creating his own version of Global.
100%, that's exactly what he's doing. And there's lots of other people, which I can't tell you about because I've found out about it secretly, but there's lots of other people who've got big podcasts. That's the route they're now going down, and they're actually leaving mainstream media. And these are people who are previously top signed BBC One talent who are now leaving the BBC to go and do their own thing. This to give you some comfort, Nick. I think this is, although it's a 20-year-old marketplace now, podcasting is only just starting to wake up in the UK. Absolutely. You're at the precipice of a wave of opportunity, and I think you're perfectly placed to take that opportunity. I think you need to be able to bankroll your lifestyle with some clients that don't take up all your time, so you can spend at least one day of your week working on an IP or the IP of a show that you own the rights to.
Yeah. And that's interesting. Again, so are they launching their own apps through which... Yeah. Oh, yeah. There. But are they? So you're saying that they're essentially launching their own platforms? They're launching their own sort of versions of Spotify.
Well, I think I'm just going to protect JB
for you to listen to them.
This might be happening, but we don't absolutely know for sure. But if you stick around over the next month,
allegedly,
when we know the full details, we will give you the inside and out.
But they're not. They're not launching their own platform. But what they are launching,
he's going for it. He's telling everyone.
What they are going to be launching is that they're going to do a partnership, same way like Bauer or Global. Global's got a global player now, so they don't need to do it. But for example, like Bauer, they work with a network. I think it's Acast. So that all their shows are on the Acast network. So they're not building a new network, but all of those shows and the ads and all that stuff, or the spot ads, or the dynamic insertions, or the sponsor reads are all being brokered by Acast. And I imagine that's what Bartlett's going to do. But he's bought in.
Create his own Wondery.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so like a production company. So he's not going to be doing outside production. He's going to do a network of shows, and he'll do his own in-house production. And then I think he's brought in 2 former C-suite of Spotify to run it for him.
Wow,
smart. I have to say,
he's smart
because he
really annoys me.
Because like Wondery is. Have you heard of Wondery, Nick?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, their shows.
What's your favourite podcast, Nick?
My favourite, well, there are 2. You've already mentioned one of them. I love Sean Keaveney, just because I used to listen to him when he was on the radio, and it's just nice to have him back in a format where I can just put him on when I want. I mean, he could do before on the iPlayer or whatever it's called, Sounds, but I love his craft. So that's a nerdy thing. My second one is Atletico Mint with Bob Mortimer. Have you ever listened to that? It's just stupid, and I love it.
I've heard it's very good.
Oh, I love it to bits. And then there are a million other little ones which I kind of, that I've come across. I've either, helped people in some way with, or that, this, that, and the other. But those are my top two. Absolutely love Athletico mints.
How many hours a week?
Oh, and this one. Yeah. And the James Sinclair podcast.
Do you listen to our podcast every week? Do you listen to our podcast every week?
Yeah, as much as I can. I mean, I also love music. So if I can't listen, I can't work in silence. I also can't work with speech going on. Right?
I'm the same.
So,
I'm the same.
I'm
the same.
I just can't do it.
Would you say you put at least 2 hours a week into podcast listening?
Yeah, I would say so, at least. Yeah.
What about
if not
into
a little
radio?
bit more so. Same amount. Radio I tend to listen to either in the morning just while I'm pottering around breakfasting and getting the kid ready for school, or if I'm in the car, then I will listen to radio. You've got to remember, and JB will back me up here, just under 90% of people still listen to live radio every week.
According to Radio, which is an old school diary, they listen to 5 minutes of a 15-minute segment if you remember to write down on a bit of paper.
Yeah, but it's true. It's true.
I don't listen to
people
radio
do
every
it
week anymore.
What do you listen to, Nick, in the morning? Are you a Chris Evans fan? You've got to be, surely.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not a Chris Evans fan. I stick. Do you know? I'm through and through. I will stick on my local radio station to see what's going on, see how those roads are looking.
Well, Nick, we're going to go and have some lunch because we're bloody hungry. But thank you very much for being on the business broadcast. Hopefully, you will see you at one of our events. You should come to the business broadcast live in June. We'd love to see you there, and anyone else that's listening. June the 10th, Leicester Square Theatre. Tickets are £32, including VAT. We'd love to see you there, and tickets are nearly sold out, so get them quick. Thanks for everyone that's already bought. We are going to have an amazing evening in the Big Smoke. Nick's amazing. Go and check him out at Ginger Wizard Productions, just to annoy JB on Phonic
Don't
Media.
check him out. I've heard he's a horrible person. I saw him kick a puppy once. I saw him kick a puppy right in the face.
Yeah. What is put a kitten in a bin?
He loves it.
I didn't.
Yeah,
he did it.
He's just disclaiming there.
Awesome stuff. Thanks
you for being on,
Nick.
And we will see you very soon. This is the Business Broadcast Live.
8 Trace of the Greats.
8 Trace of the
Come
Greats.
on, quick.
Come on,
sorry.
You're getting really good at this. Right, 8 Traits of Great Entrepreneurs. Those of you that don't know, if you're new to this podcast, we grade our guests that come on with the 8 Traits of Great Entrepreneurs. Number 1 is starting with the end in mind. No.
I'm not sure he is at the moment.
He doesn't know what he's doing yet. No. Number 2, passionate about the cause. Yes,
definitely.
He absolutely is. Untold amounts of resilience, not being tested yet. So no. So in 1 point so far. Question 4, they master relationships with people. He's one of the most loveliest people that I've ever come across. Yes. So he gets another point.
I want him to come and work for me. Yeah. That's what I want.
2 points.
That might come across in the narrative. I might have angled the conversation to get that outcome.
Number 5, commercial awareness. No. Number 6, they innovate so they don't evaporate. Well, I actually think he is trying to innovate.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I'm going to give him that. They're master marketeers. Nah.
Hang on, I've not been doing my tally chart.
He could be great at marketing.
You get emotional over it.
Oh, sorry, I'm just struggling there with a cough. Still struggling. Number 8, they stay teachable and curious. I think he got 3.5 there.
3.5. There you go, fantastic. He's drawing with Alan Johnson, the coach, just above Sam from King's Garage, just below Chris from Gecko Products, and he's just lagging behind slightly from Kesh, who also does some
I don't think he could
stuff.
come work for you, because could you imagine your team? They'd be like, these two literally think
absolute geek
they're doing
out.
A breakfast show 24 hours a day. So, what are we having for lunch today?
Hey, did you listen to the latest radar statistics, and have you heard about that cardioid microphone? How fascinating.
Also, listeners, you probably heard them talk about radar. No one else. I mean, I do know what it is. It's about the radio ratings of listeners. And I thought that's very proprietary talk for no one else.
Yeah, sorry about
other than Ginger Productions and JB would understand what it is. Weirdly, I do know, because...
the Radio Joint Audience Research stands for radar.
So when you're advertising on radio, they say, look, this is our radar reference, which when I've looked at it as well.
Do you still use radio ads for Marsh Farm
when I've
stuff?
Looked at, I mean, but they always talk about these, right? Look at our radar, we've had this many people listen. You know,
Is that how they talk to you?
How do you work out? Well, we asked 500 people what radio station, and that's what we're basing our results on.
That is
a tiny amount of people.
Do you know, it gets worse. It's a paper diary.
Yeah.
That people have to keep for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And every 15 minutes they're supposed to write down what they've been listening to.
Oh, those are my customers.
What do you use? What do you use radio for these days? Still ads for Marsh Farm?
Yeah, we would use it for Marsh Farm.
Do you use it for Rossi?
No.
Don't need to.
No, I just, look, I think radio has its place if you're going to do it nationally, en masse with, you know, if you compare the Meerkat or whatever that thing is, you're doing TV, you're doing ads, you're doing Facebook ads.
Part of the marketing mix.
Yeah, I think it really does work on that stuff.
I think you're right. Well, I hope everyone else has enjoyed this conversation. This would be like a 45-minute geek out.
And compare the Meerkat, you've just had a free sponsor on our ad.
We'll put your PayPal link in the details, and you could just send across your information. Do you get many people tapping you up to sponsor the podcast?
No. Yeah. But it's all people we don't want. Well, it is. People ask us all the time, don't they? Stuff. We're very picky about who we associate with.
Other than co-hosts, in
American
which case
Express is where we want to be.
Fair.
And they are going to do some stuff with us again.
There you go. For this podcast,
maybe we've pitched to them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, this is fancy, isn't it? Yeah, watch out for a LinkedIn post coming soon. Where I talk about podcasting for landing big brands. I've done nothing towards it. I just turned up, pressed some jingles. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Right, should we go get some lunch?
Yep. See you soon, gang.
Bye.
Thanks for watching today, gang. I hope you enjoyed the show. Now, look, we're looking for some great businesses to come on the podcast. If you've got challenges, but you're desperate to grow your business and you can't necessarily work out how to do it on your own, you'll be a perfect candidate to come here on the podcast. It's absolutely free to come on the show. Go to my website, jamessinclair.net, and there's a podcast button. Click on the podcast button, fill in the application form, and we'll do our very best to get you on the show and try and grow your business. If you're loving the podcast, make sure you subscribe to the channel by clicking here. And why not give this one a watch? I think you'll like it.